Hello, everyone! The 38th episode of Skibidi Zombie Universe came out really quick in comparison with other episodes from MonsterUp recently. And I couldn't be more happy about it. And let me tell you something. This episode was really insane, and the creator of the series didn't lie to us when he said that it's going to have some crazy plot twists in it and a very tragic ending that will blow our mind. So today I'm going to tell you what really happened in this episode, as well as reveal to you all the secrets and Easter eggs that you could have missed on your own. What tragic loss we're about to witness in this episode? Who was hiding behind the speaker woman's mask, and what were his true intentions? And most importantly, what's going to happen to Plungerman now and why his fate looks really gloom from now on? If you want to know the answers to all these questions, then get your tea and snacks ready and prepare to watch this video to the end, because I saved the craziest part for later. Let's go! But before I'll start digging into episode 38, let me remind you real quick about the events of the previous episode, so you won't get too confused about what has actually been going on. So in the 37th episode of the Skibidi Zombie Universe, the focus in the beginning is on Skibidi, who is my most favorite character actually. The episode begins with Skibidi confronting his fears, which are represented by the hallucination of a zombie version of himself. And it tells us about his internal struggles, while also showcasing his bravery and resistance to losing his true self. The illusion tests Skibidi's willpower, but he ultimately overcomes it by proving his strength. The episode then shifts to the police mutant, who fearlessly confronts a ghost, and then narrowly avoids an attack by two knives who were thrown at him by someone. And these knives suggest the presence of Speaker Woman, or a sinister entity mimicking her, which raised lots of suspicions in the police mutant. The scene then transitions to Plungerman, that already conquered his fears of Dave in the previous episode, who finally reaches a significant location filled with the petrified figures of tvman and some mysterious giants. As the team gathers, the tensions rise even more, especially with the suspicious behavior of Speaker Woman, who turns out to be not a Speaker Woman at all, and all of our characters notice that sudden change. The episode then escalates, as the purple core reanimates the petrified figures while turning them into very powerful swarm of enemies, which are even able to regenerate their lost limbs due to their unique abilities that were probably given to them by the power of the Atlantis core itself. The team struggles a lot against these enemies, and just as hope seems lost, the police mutant heroically decides to use the Hephaestus core, which leads to him getting transformed into an epic cyber soldier whose goal is to save his comrades. And the episode ends on a really tense note, with a hint of upcoming epic battles and tragic losses in the upcoming episode. And it's also important to mention how MonsterUp himself has indicated that the series is building toward a major heartbreaking event where some beloved characters may die, and that the series is about to become even more epic from now on. Okay, so now when your memory is refreshed and you're all set and ready, episode 38 is already on your screens. But before I'll dive into actual analysis, let me remind you to give this video a like and subscribe to my channel if you like the content I'm making, because I really appreciate your support. Okay, so if you are subscribed now, let's get back to the episode. And it starts with the police mutant, who gets transformed into new epic form of a cyber soldier, and the petrified giants immediately start blasting at him from their cannons. But with the power of Hephaestus core, the police mutant receives some immensely powerful upgrades as well, so no attacks from his opponents are any problem for him. He activates this futuristic shield that looks a bit similar to the shield that Titan Cameraman had in episode 65 of Boom's original series that could also be retracted from one part of his arm. And this shield successfully absorbs all the purple shots that were sent at the police mutant. And then just a second later, he gets up on his feet again and starts using his new powerful gun, which really reminded me of a gun model called Star's Samurai Edge from the Resident Evil game series. And he provides just a flawless headshot with it into one of the stone giant's head. But just a second after it got ripped off in pieces, his head got back on its initial place again. And just as I said earlier, the figures that are guarding the Atlantis core seem to be able to regenerate the lost parts of their bodies, which would make a task of eliminating them completely almost impossible. And if it's difficult even for a person who's been boosted with the power of one of 4 cores, what can we even say about the regular agents of Plungerman's squad? So the police mutant realizes that something has to be done ASAP, otherwise his friends will get destroyed by these petrified freaks anyways, and his sacrifice would just go down the drain. So he decides to activate another ability that Hephaestus core granted to him, and it's a bunch of powerful lasers that are being produced with his new cyborg helmet. So with just one blast of these lasers, he successfully frees PLUNGERMAN out of the grip of the petrified freak that held him, and after that he quickly says to him, "Take the stone," by which he meant the Atlantis core, of course. Because it seems to be obvious that the purple core is able to support life in the bodies of its loyal guards for basically an eternity. And taking the stone out of this place is the only way to finally succeed in their mission and also to survive. That's why the police mutant gave out such an order to PLUNGERMAN, and meanwhile he himself decided to fulfill something different. He transforms 2 of his arms into huge, heavy hammers that are also capable of working as jetpacks with the fire coming from their ends. And with such powerful weapons, the police mutant accelerates himself like crazy and then starts moving further into the cave. And on his way, he tries to eliminate as many stone guardians as possible with the heavy blows coming from his hammers. And apparently these weapons work just like a charm this time, and it's really swift and easy to destroy these guardians with the hammers. But of course, the stone giants are still the problem, considering that they have their own ranged weapons, and one of them even tries to shoot the police mutant once again. But thankfully, his upgraded armor by the Hephaestus core successfully absorbed this attack. The police mutant then turns around and sends the whole freaking hammer into the huge enemy's chest where his purple core has been located. And in the meantime, we're also getting shown how my favorite boy Skibidi also decides to participate in some action. And man, he's also handling his regular petrified opponents pretty well, even despite the fact that he's not crazily upgraded and doesn't have the best weapons in the world. And then we're getting to the police mutant's perspective again, where one of the giants tries to blast him with his own thick purple laser. And it seems to me that our mutant absorbs the power of this laser as a whole with his hand as if he was Sebastian Shaw from one of X-Men movies or something like that. But then he gets bored of that pretty quickly, so he throws the second hammer into this annoying guy and removes the part of his hand that contained the laser for good. And in that moment, it seems like the Atlantis core starts feeling unsafe, as well as the police mutant may seem like an actual threat to it. So it summons all of its remaining guardians to one front line in order to protect itself no matter what. And right now it seems to me that the police mutant is about to walk through the literal hell and back in order to clear the way for PLUNGERMAN to get this core. So he gives him a signal to get ready, and grabs his hammer as tight as possible, and then he literally flies through the bunch of enemies in front of him like super character called Flash. And we see how the petrified figures are starting to regenerate really quick. So PLUNGERMAN follows the steps of the police mutant as fast as he can just in order to reach the Atlantis core. And then we're getting shown a really epic scene of how the police mutant literally beats these stone giants into the cave ground with his hammer, and that definitely produced hell of an impact. Meanwhile, PLUNGERMAN finally reaches the point of this squad's whole destination. So the purple core is right in front of him now, and the core removes the protective shell just by itself and reveals the actual heartstone that PLUNGERMAN needed all this time. So he reaches out his hand and grabs it without any further preparation, as the time is really tight inside of this cave. But of course, this decision comes with consequences. So the PLUNGERMAN's mind gets struck by the painful flashbacks from his past. Or to be more precise, I'm talking about the video clip where we're getting shown the screaming young man with dark hair. And this is the human version of PLUNGERMAN before all the experiments that were conducted on him. And I contacted MonsterUp specifically in order to clarify some questions about the scene, and he explained everything to me. So it turns out that PLUNGERMAN used to be the subject of terrible experiments back when he was still a human, and after them he become what he is now, and I mean his PLUNGERMAN form. And MonsterUp also heavily implied that these terrible experiments were conducted on him from the Alliance's authorities, and this information is extremely valuable to us, and I will talk more about it later in this video. And what he sees next after touching the purple core is actually the events from the near future and not the past anymore. So in one of the frames, we see the knight all beaten up and also without his mask, so we can see his true face this time. And we're getting revealed that it was male 07 face all this time, although I already told you guys about the knight's real persona in my earlier analyses when we saw the soul coming out of his body. And this scene could mean that the knight might be in real danger soon, and this is not good for us at all. And then we see something even more terrible in the next couple of frames, and it's the lifeless body of our Chad G-Man. And oh wait, wasn't he supposed to be patched up in the Alliance's base? And then we see the Speakerman's base, which is completely destroyed and wrecked up, and there's a figure of the Plague Doctor standing next to it. And it's pretty obvious that it was him who was responsible for not only destruction of the Speakerman's base in the future, which was also something that he always wanted to do, but he's also connected to the other miseries that showed up in the Plungerman's brain. But despite the fact that it may seem like all of these scenes are about to take place at the same time and as a part of the same storyline, MonsterUp actually explained to me that all of these scenes from the nearest future are from different episodes, which means that PLUNGERMAN is about to witness several major tragedies, and the first one will happen at the end of today's episode. Okay, but why would the Purple Core show him this images? Just to hurt him? Well, do you remember how the special ability of the Atlantis Core is to cure the infected person from zombie virus, right? So MonsterUp hinted it to me that the Atlantis Core will be able to cure just one of these characters. So PLUNGERMAN will actually have to choose whom exactly to save, which is an unbelievably difficult choice. And MonsterUp also told me that he plans to dedicate at least one of the episodes to the past of the Plague Doctor and tell us his own story. So what do you guys think of that? Would you like to see the prequel to the Plague Doctor's character? Be sure to write your opinion about it in the comments below this video, because MonsterUp told me that he'll be really interested in reading your comments. So after such a shocking information, PLUNGERMAN drops the core out of his hands. And meanwhile, we also see how all the Guardians lose their powers as the core doesn't fuel them up anymore. And Skibidi was about to pick up the core, but then suddenly something absolutely atrocious happens, because Skibidi gets sneakily stubbed by the false speaker woman that was also here all along. And then the disgusting entity behind her mask finally reveals itself, and of course, this is the infected drillman who survived in the encounter with the Red Titan drillman. And then he bites into the beck of my boy Skibidi, which leaves no hope for him to survive. The police mutant sees this horrible scene and starts breathing heavily out of fear and anger. Zombie Drillman then tries to sneak away via underground with the core in his hands, and it's apparent that he was about to deliver this most precious core to his master, the Plague Doctor. But of course, the police mutant will not ever allow this to happen, so he literally shakes the ground with his hammer and makes Zombie Drillman to come out on surface. And as the freak tries to come to his senses and realize what the hell just happened, the police mutant already rushes towards him with the hammer in his hands, and oh man, he's ready to serve justice and avenge his Skibidi friend. And then just in a second, he literally annihilates this awful freak with the hammer that contained the power of the Hephaestus core, which means that we're not going to ever see this disgusting creature ever again. But unfortunately, it cost all the vital powers that still remained inside of the police mutant's body, and in the next scene, we see how he starts getting consumed by the core. He moves to Skibidi using his last efforts and falls right next to his body, which is just heartbreaking. And it means that the police mutant is about to pass away in the literal seconds while Skibidi will turn into zombie, which was his worst fear, by the way, which makes this scene even more horrifying. PLUNGERMAN desperately looks at them. And on such hopeless note, today's episode ends. And what makes its ending even more emotional is the fact that PLUNGERMAN is not only to witness such tragic losses, but he was also forced to remember his past and hurtful connection to the Alliance, which means that he's really about to choose his future fate, and it is possible that he even refuses to cooperate with the Alliance due to his found memories. And it also means that this series can turn into absolute chaos from now on. And that was all for today. Be sure to subscribe to my channel so you will not miss my new videos. And also don't forget to leave your question to MonsterUp about the future plot of Skibidi Zombie series. And that was me, IsoToilet. See ya!